Last year, I took a look at some of the most famous vampires in movie history, and I did a tier list on them. This year, I wanted to do a video talking about werewolves, but I didn't just want to talk about werewolves themselves. Instead, I kind of wanted to get more specific and talk about the transformation scenes in these iconic werewolf movies. So, as we're going about ranking these, remember, I'm not ranking the whole movie. I just am talking about these scenes where people turn from humans into werewolves. I do want to say up front that this video is probably going to be a little grosser, a little more bloody than some of the other videos that I do on the channel. But again, I'm not going to try to get demonetized or anything. So you should be pretty safe if you're into this kind of thing at all. There might also be some slight spoilers for some of these werewolf movies. So also just be warned about that. We're going to start off by talking about that bottom tier, the F tier in here. We're going to have two entries on this one. The first one is going to be a movie called Wolf. This stars Jack Nicholson. I got this one down at the very bottom because the guy just kind of wakes up as a werewolf, and as you're watching the scene, it honestly doesn't even look like he's got any prosthetics on for most of it. It's very subtle in this movie, at least in different parts of it. And so, yeah, for me on this one, just waking up and kind of being a little extra hairy and your teeth being a little extra sharp is not enough to get you any higher than the F tier. Now, you got to hear me out on this next one, but the Wolfman is also going to be here in F tier. This is the original. A transformation scene that's in this movie is you just kind of see the guy walking around the room, just kind of like, whoa, I don't feel great. And he sits down, and then we see his legs transform. Now, of course, given the time, any kind of like transition like this is going to be like, whoa, that's crazy. But it really just isn't much when it comes to a scene of somebody turning into a big monster like this. So this one's going to be down there in F tier, but don't worry, this isn't going to be the last time we see this classic werewolf. We're going to move on to the D tier now, and the next one to cover is going to be the TV show Teen Wolf. Now, there are a ton of different transformations in this show, and I'm sure you could find one that's like, no, this one's actually cool. But for me, we're just kind of going with this one that's kind of earlier in the show, right? And it's not really much of anything. You do get a couple shots of like maybe nails growing and teeth again are getting in there and the hair's getting a little bit longer. But when you see the final guy, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, sure, he looks not normal, but it's nothing that scary. Werewolves Within is going to be the next D tier entry. This one's got at least some decent sound design in here, though it's very quick. And again, it's kind of minimal when it comes to like the actual transformation. Sure, there's some actual prosthetics and stuff in there that are being used. And so that's fun to see. But again, it's just really quick. I guess I just kind of like setting myself up for getting yelled at in the comics because Dog Soldiers is going to be here in the D tier. Now, this is a great werewolf movie. So again, don't think that that's what I'm trying to say is that this is bad. But this transformation scene is, again, a lot off screen, almost entirely off screen. But again, the sound design is at least working for it. And it's intense, right? The struggle before the guy goes down underneath the table is real. You see like the pain and everything in the face, which I do appreciate. And so, yeah, it's the top of the D tier, but it's still D tier. Moving up into C tier. Now, from here on out, I'm going to say these are at least pretty cool. When it comes to the transformations themselves, not disappointing at all. So here we're going to have Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Now the Wolfman is going to feature here in this one, but unlike his appearance in the original Wolfman transformation that we talked about in here, we're getting to see that face. There's a lot of different cuts in there. It's pretty gradual as he's going. It's not like one big jump to another. And so I do like that. Again, anytime somebody is desperate to get information out before they turn into a werewolf, add some tension to the scene. So I do like that as well. Overall, this one's fun, right? Because it's not supposed to be like a flat out horror movie. It's an Abbott and Costello comedy featuring these universal monsters. But I do think that this scene in and of itself is effective when it comes to showing this monster transformation. Silver Bullet has a few moments in it where everything looks kind of goofy, right? But that's true for a lot of these. If you take a still frame at one point or another in the transformation, it's going to look a little off. But the overall feel of like things getting bigger, like this person is like kind of exploding out of their body a little bit as they're kind of like their clothes are ripping and everything, and they're just getting bigger and stronger, and seeing the face contort into the shape of a wolf is always effective in my opinion. And so this one doesn't get super high in there, but it's definitely not in the bottom. Bad Moon is going to show some of the limitations of the time that it was created, right? It's got some morphs that don't really look great. It's all digital when it comes to the actual like transformation from one to the other outside of like shots where they're adding a few prosthetics onto the guy earlier in the transformation. But when he's going from person to werewolf, they're just kind of morph in from one to the other. But I do, again, really like the size change that's happening, like how tall he's getting in that. Plus the scene playing out like as an actual scene between two people where he's talking to his sister about how he's turning into a werewolf. It's all good. It's all good stuff. Teen Wolf is going to finish off C tier for us. It's pretty quick in how it happens, but you can definitely see like the fear and everything on Michael J. Fox's face. Again, this is not going for like a horror vibe because it's not a horror movie. Teen Wolf is like, how do you classify Teen Wolf? It's like a coming of age comedy, sports movie. It's got I guess a little bit of everything for people in there, but seeing him like kind of suddenly transform into the wolf, again, it's not gradual, but then the fact that you do get the reveal also that his dad is a werewolf too. 2 werewolves for the price of 1. It's always good. As we move up into the B tier, we're going to talk about Twilight. Now, it's easy to dog on Twilight, but I think that I like the transformations. I like how quick they are. Now, if you're going for tension and everything, that's not going to be in a real fast transformation, but because of the type of movie that it is, it's cool. I mean, I think that it works well for what they're going for. The transformation from the Thriller music video is going to be up next. Now, I'm not 100% sure if he's actually supposed to be a werewolf or some kind of a werecat. He's got very pronounced whiskers, so do forgive me if he shouldn't be on this list for that reason. But again, getting the same people who would work on some of the other movies that are going to be featured later on in this list to work on this music video is a good move. Great special effects in here. The first time he turns and looks at the girl in there, it's very scary. It's like one of those moments that's very burned into my memory, like as a kid. Like there'd be times where I'd close my eyes, I'd see that face, and I wouldn't be able to fall asleep for a while. I also really like the final transformation, like how furry the werewolf is here. It's good stuff. Next up in the B tier is going to be the movie Cursed. I'll always know this as the movie where the werewolf like flips people the bird, but it's also got decent transformations in it. Now it is very CGI, which I mean, I'm not going to hold that completely against the movie because it at least does some kind of unique things with it. Judy Greer is turning into this werewolf, and like her regular hair is falling out. Her body is kind of stretching. And then you get the shot of her face. And again, it looks kind of goofy there for like a split second, but it's because it's slowly changing from like person to wolf. And it does get to a pretty decent werewolf design, which is done with like physical and actual practical effects. So that's always cool. Finishing off B tier is going to be Monster Squad. Now, the transformation from this movie I want to talk about is the one in the phone booth. Again, just love these desperate phone calls that these people are making while they're trying to stop themselves from turning into a werewolf or just put it off long enough to be able to get the information out to the people that they're talking to. When he just like spits up all of that like foam as he's on the phone with him too, it's just very much a great transition, right? Because it just kind of is panning through. You hit that dark spot and you get that cut in there as he's talking. It's awesome. And I like the fact that he's gray, right? You get a lot of werewolves that are brown and black. I like that it's like a gray werewolf. It's kind of a different look too. So pretty cool in this one. So now we're moving up into the A tier. These are going to be like some of the all-time classics. If anything is up here in A or S tier, hey, don't be mad at me if it's in a different order than the way you would put it, because these are classics for sure. First up in the A tier, we're going to have The Howling. I love how much this is just kind of like bubbling underneath the skin. It's very drawn out. This isn't how they would make a movie nowadays, where you just get to see all of this stuff happening and they're not being afraid to have it be on screen. They're doing a good job hiding things in the shadows, with the curtains and everything, just kind of blocking stuff out some. But he's just getting all of those different transformation aspects in there, right? Again, like with the bubbling skin, the cracking bone sounds, the jaw like extending, the teeth growing, the eyes, all of it just kind of slowly going, in the horror of the mom from E.T. who's there too, right? And she's grabbing the acid to get ready to throw on him. It's all good stuff. Underworld is another one of those movies and series where there's just a lot of transformation. So I'm just kind of focusing in on this one where it's the lichen that's getting ready to fight the guy with the whips. It works for what the movie is. It's not dragging it out. It's not like an existential crisis that this guy is transforming. It's just a part of life, right? This guy knows he's a lichen. He's going to turn into this werewolf and he's going to fight this vampire dude. And it's really cool, like while it's happening. A lot of it is digital with like the morphing and everything in there, but it's effective in how they do it, and they do it quick. Plus, it goes into like this unique actual werewolf design, so that's always an extra bonus. Van Helsing is going to be next, and I like all the werewolf transformations in this movie because of just how much it's just like exploding out from the skin underneath it. Like all the skin like falls off, which is something we're going to see brought up a little bit in some future entries as well. But this is definitely like the PG-13 version of it. It's not meant to be overly drawn out or anything like that, but it is effective in this, like, oh, people don't really want to turn into these werewolves, and it's something that is painful, which again, I think some of the best werewolf transformations really sell that part of it. Speaking of painful werewolf transformations, let's talk about the 2010 Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. This is just like agonizing. Now, we do know that there were some practical effects that did end up getting replaced in that, so this always hurts, but let's just talk about what's actually featured in the movie here. The guy's like teeth are getting pushed out, his hands are contorting and completely having to reshape to be able to be a part of like this new monster that he's turning into. The way the shoes rip, a good shoe rip is always cool. I always like that, especially when like the claws come poking out of it. It's always awesome. I was really close to putting this one in S tier, but I just really don't like how it seems like the regular skin just kind of dissolves away. Like it just kind of like goes away so that way then the furry skin can be there. Again, not enough to make me want to like knock it down at all, but just enough to not get it up into the S tier. Overall, fantastic design on the final Wolfman himself. Like he's just huge. I love how big his back is. Like he just looks strong, and I think that's always cool too. The next transformation here is going to be from the movie The Company of Wolves. This whole transformation is very kind of long, and not in a way where it's like, oh, you're seeing all these different things that are happening. It's a guy just kind of like flailing around and just like yelling, which is, I don't know, it could be funny, like, but not in the way they want it to be, like if it's taken out of context, which could hurt this whole thing if it weren't for that striking image of like the wolf's snout shooting out of this guy's mouth. Sometimes all you need is that one image. And then that's going to get us up into the S tier, which we're going to find our 3 final werewolf transformations. The first one in here I want to talk about is going to be Trick or Treat. I love how wet this transformation is. When they're just kind of like peeling like a whole arm's worth of skin just like off like a sleeve, and it's just falling on the ground, and it's just gross. It helps add to the horror of it that there's just like a ton of them. It's a whole pack of people that are doing this. There's a ton of little details and everything going on in the background too of this scene that just kind of adds to it every time you watch it, even after that first time. So yeah, Trick or Treat, definitely an all-time Halloween classic, and this scene is up there and like one of the best scenes of the whole movie. Our next S tier entry is going to be another transformation from the movie The Company of Wolves. I didn't really want to double dip, but these transformations are so different that I just really couldn't help myself. So in this one, what is happening is this guy's like ripping all of his skin off, and then you see like the muscular structure of his body, and then it transforms into like the muscular structure of a wolf, and it's awesome. I just love the way that the nose just shoots out. Again, the nose being very prevalent in this movie, but in a different way here. It's so much different than anything else that we've seen on the list that it's just like, whoa. And then that finally brings us up to the number 1. I tried my best to try to find something that was better, but in rewatching all of these scenes, there's nothing as effective as the transformation scene in An American Werewolf in London. It's just so good, and everything else just seems to be like imitating it in one way or another. I mean, this guy is in so much pain when this is happening, as you would be, as your body would change from one form to another like this, right? The way his hand is growing, and you just see like how much he is just horrified at seeing it happen, and not even just like how much it's hurting, but just like watching your body change like this, and just thinking about like what that would do to you mentally is just wild. It's so crazy how many setups they had to have for this, like for just like 2 seconds of the film to have like this big practical thing made with like, okay, this is the in between this and this, and the guy's going to be in it, and then we're going to move on to the next one, and just being like, okay, this is where the money's going to go. We're going to put this into this scene, and it's paid off because even all these years later, it's just still like holds up as just something that is incredible to see. Just if you like practical movie effects, and you haven't seen this scene, you need to watch it. And then you need to watch the behind the scenes on how they did it too, because it's just so awesome. And so that's my list of werewolf transformations. Now, I know that I did not get all the big ones on there. So please let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I missed, or maybe I should put together an additional list next year for Halloween. With like 100 years of werewolf movies, I mean, it's inevitable. I wasn't going to get them all on here. If you did stick around this long into the video, I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if you could throw a like on the video, that'd be awesome. And if you want to watch future videos like this one, feel free to just subscribe. Love having that number tick up and being able to help people find videos that they like to watch here on YouTube. So thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you on the next video. Until then, you take care. Happy Halloween.